Thank you for the comment. Let's figure this out. This is a reason why it's so important for you as a manager or new leader to conduct a current state to understand your current performance of your team. Because what happens is that your boss, your manager, communicates the goals without him or her doing any analysis. Guess what? Then, if you don't know your current state, your current performance, especially if you're a new leader, you're going to agree to something that maybe you're not capable of doing. Okay, so let's work through this. First things first, if you've already agreed on the number, right, make sure that you're communicating that number to your team and own the number. So here's what I mean. Make sure that you're not deflecting the message to say, oh, this is my boss or this is what they want. You've got to own it to say, hey, this is our number. This is what we're going to do. We're not there yet, but we're going to figure out a plan and how to get there. I'll do that. I'll help with that. But we own that number. Because employees want to see leaders that are confident, that know what they're doing. If you do these simple steps, you're going to make so much progress in the performance in your team, to include performance and culture, that you may exceed this expectation. So let's get ready. The first assumption I'm going to make, Jennifer, is that you know how to do Excel. So it's important that you understand how to develop these tools, or if you need help with the tools, please DM me. I have a library of tools. However, it's important that you know Excel and how to create these tools. First things first. Number one, conduct observations to understand what the reasonable expectation is. Observations are literally sitting with your employees and timing them to complete the item. Make sure that you take your average employee, not your high performer, not your low performer, and you take about 10 or 15 samples of different people throughout the day and throughout the week. Once you do that, you have to determine what the reasonable expectation is. In that scatter graph that you have, or in the graphing that you have, you're going to have a cluster of numbers. It may be 5 minutes or 4.2 or 6 minutes. If it's a cluster of numbers that you think is a reasonable expectation, then pick a number, not too high and not too low. But since you already agreed to this goal, your reasonable expectation is 4.3 minutes for every unit that you process. So when you plan your work, you've got to use this number. But now that you have your reasonable expectation, you actually know what the delta is between what you're capable of doing and what the goal is. Number two, begin creating a skill flex training matrix so you understand what the skill gap is within your team. Number three, begin tracking lost time. And what this means is that create a tracking sheet of the different categories that your team is losing time. In this case, equipment. Make sure that you're indicating the lack of equipment, lack of materials, rework, double handling, anything that's causing a delay in the work that your team is doing. Create a tracking sheet and track every minute that they're losing time on. And when I say every minute, because if it takes you 4.3 minutes, every second or every half a minute counts towards not hitting your goal. And the last thing, make sure that you're creating a plan every week. If the goal is 600 every single week for 6 people, that's the plan. Then all you have to do is plug in the actuals. Then once you start training people, because of your training matrix, you have to create training plans so that people know how to do certain things. That's going to tell you where the skill gaps are. Then with the lost time, once you track it for a week or 2 weeks, then it's gonna be glaring. It's gonna be glaring the things that you need to fix. Start fixing those. If you just do those two things, you're gonna see a huge improvement in just output of work, culture, teamwork. As long as you're doing everything correctly, you may even exceed the 100. Then the last thing and the most important thing in this whole process is making sure that you do a huddle meeting every day or a stand up and talking about what you're discovering and the things that you're improving with your team. Remember, in everything you're doing, you're trying to create buy-in. And the more you're transparent with your team and talking to your team about, hey, I did these observations and these are the things that I learned and I discovered, and this is what we're currently doing now, or even your skill matrix, post it up there and say, hey, there's some people that may have better skills than others, but here's what we're planning on doing for training, bringing in technical skills, on the job training, cross training, bringing someone else from a different team that teach us the right skill sets. And the last thing is like talk about lost time. Hey, these are the things that I'm discovering, or this is the things that people are discovering during the process of work. Does that make sense? Okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fix this one thing in the next 2 weeks. Once we do that, it's going to help us with performance. Here's the second thing. Here's the third thing. Here's some quick wins. This is a long term project. Begin having those conversations in those huddle meetings. And before you know it, you're going to have a high performing team. Your team's going to be engaged. Then you might even exceed this number, shattering what your boss expects. And the most important thing for you as a leader, you're going to create value for the organization and for the team. Remember, this number that they're giving you is based on the forecast number that they're projected on sales. But if you exceed that, guess what? They're going to see you as a resource because you're doing things right and you know how to manage. That's the most important thing. If you do, and this is what I'm sharing with you is just a small little snippet of the entire process that I teach. And if you do more of what I teach you, you're going to get promoted really, really quick. So by all means, please DM me, join my newsletter, and let me know how it goes.